This fucking chair sucks.
Posture, remember.
Yeah, chairs need to suck. They're all broken. The ones in the pit.
What's going on, guys? Episode number 8 of the Vision Cast. Our guest, a very good friend of mine, Ben Kane from PricePlow. Thank you, my friend, for coming by.
Super excited to be here. It's nice to see you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, super excited about this.
Awesome.
Thanks
And so, I mean, just to, right off the bat, I know you very well. They know you, not as well as I do. Who knows? But I want you to get into, I know you were on the branding side of things. You've been with PricePlow for a couple of years now. You guys have been crushing it. How was that transition going from the branding side to now working with a multitude of brands, from us to Core to MTS?
Everyone. So maybe like early background to start would have been, I went to Rutgers for dietetics. I thought I wanted to work in hospitals, and I'm so glad that I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good move.
Yeah, I just would have hated the whole thing. But I was working at Vitamin Shop, actually after GNC. So fun fact, I worked at Vitamin Shop and GNC like 6 years total. I was in retail a decent amount of time while I was in college. And one night, I'm closing up this Vitamin Shop, and someone wanted to come in, this older guy wanted to come in and walk around the store, and I normally would have just like been like, hey, we're closed or whatever, but I had to count up some cash in the till or something, so I let him in, locked the door behind him, and he kind of walked around the room and did stuff, and he asked me a couple questions about different products, and I had answers to the questions that were really in depth because I just obsessed with reading stuff on the internet. And I knew a little bit too much, more than I really should have. And the guy offered me a job on the spot. It was actually Mark Glazier from NutriBio.
Oh, shit.
And he was like, I don't know what you're doing, but if you come to my warehouse, like I'll give you like literally a job. So I actually dropped out of college. Didn't finish. I like to tell everyone I went to Rutgers for dietetics, but I don't have my degree in dietetics. It's
that's fine.
very specific usage of words. So I spent years, I went in as a customer service rep. I was technically the product specialist because I was more educated than your normal customer service rep would be. And I assisted like the marketing department and sales and stuff. I was part of the initial move into wholesale. If you guys remember back then, they were direct to consumer for, I think, 16 years.
Yeah.
Before they went into wholesale, I was really instrumental in that. And I was really lucky to be able to build a lot there. I won't spend too much time on that, but I had I came in at the right time at a brand where I was able to assist in marketing and sales and learn things that a lot of people don't understand. Wholesale margins, how it works with brick and mortar, how it works with distributors.
Sure.
Launching into different various places like Big Store, GNC, and Vitamin Shop. I did both myself as well as bodybuilding.com. And it was a really good place for me to learn everything. So transitioning, I was at another brand for a very short amount of time. And it was kind of funny when I announced that I'd gone to that brand. Mike from PricePlow, who had become a really good friend of mine when I was at NutriBio because I was a contact.
Sure.
He called me and he was like, fuck you. He's like,
Wow.
How the fuck didn't you tell me you were looking for a job?
That actually sounds like something. He's pretty.
Yeah,
He can come
yeah.
out and.
He was straight up.
Mike comes out swinging. I like it.
Yeah, and I was pretty embarrassed. You get fired from a job, it was amicable. It was kind of mutual in a lot of different ways, but I was embarrassed that I was looking for a job. So I didn't tell my friends, and I didn't consider PricePlow to be a place that was hiring. In a lot of ways, people look at PricePlow as just like an entity that lives on its own. And so he was like, what would it cost to get you here? And I was like, I gave him a number. And when I left that next brand, he called me. He was like, I got that number for you. So I came over, and it was the first time he had like hired someone full time. If you guys remember,
Everybody before was part-time,
CJ,
consultant.
Robert, consultants. They had never really created. Those guys are great. I still talk to CJ and Robert a decent amount. Robert and I have consulted on different things before together, but no one sat down and made it like a proper business. Which Mike was doing his thing, but I came in and really like legitimized it. In that, we have retainers with different brands. We sell data business, a lot of different stuff, and made it a little bit more legitimate. So the transition,
professional.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like it was funny. Like I came in and I remember him like talking about what he had done in the last 12 months. And Mike was at the time doing all of this on his own, which was crazy. And I was like, well, what? Here were some SKUs that had launched. Like for instance, like KXR in your gummy flavor. Why didn't you talk about that flavor? Like, well, they didn't reach out to me. And so it was a process of creating better communications with brands and getting things on a regular basis. And it's been super, super rewarding. But Recently, there's been a lot. I hate to put it on myself, but a lot of people have been saying, PricePlow's really crushing and growing in terms of in the industry and being a lot more recognized, I guess.
Relevancy's through the roof.
Yeah,
100%. I agree.
Yeah. And it's been super just rewarding to be able to create all this content and have everyone consume it and be able to help the industry so much. Because for me, I hated the supplement industry when I entered into it, and the only reason I actually went to NutriBio instead of continuing on my path to become a dietitian was because I felt that I had a possibility to positively influence, because I was at a brand where I considered to be the only brand to be non-proprietary and stuff. And now that's the status quo now. If you have proprietary blends today, you're screwed. But coming to PricePlow, I decided that I actually had more of a chance to change the industry working on my own than I did if I was actually at a brand.
Wider reach.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
funny, we talked about that in our last episode. It's funny.
I mean, you guys have been in this in a long time. I mean, how many times have you seen like changes? And you were talking about before, like high stim versus low stim pre-workouts. There's been a change, and I legitimately feel as if, like I was talking about the one that Nick was talking about with Havoc. Like I talked about that a lot. Like, hey guys, we need to be consuming less stimulants and consuming more things that will actually help us perform better.
Sure.
I don't know, but it feels like we get to change the tides a little bit when we get to communicate this stuff through our podcasts, our blogs, our videos and stuff. So it's been a really wild ride.
You're putting information out that has an impact.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, right? You can communicate in a helpful way, but that can help not only the end consumer, but it's helping brands, the direction.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a bunch of other people that do similar stuff. People kind of put us up there with Fitness Inform and Stack 3D and stuff. We're kind of like the big three in terms of media. We all kind of do our like a unique kind of thing, and I consider myself to be like the closest to the lifters, but also bringing in legitimate science. You know, I talk with Ryan a lot from Fitness Inform, and he always pushes us as like really the more sciencey side of things, because I can really articulate stuff.
Sure.
But I'm also a competitive powerlifter, so I can also kind of, maybe show the way a little bit better.
Yeah. I get it. Nick's a Division 7 softball player, so he can relate to being a
Completely. So PricePlow as a whole, I know. Let's just get away from that. So come on. So
He is the best softball player in Long Island right now.
top 5.
Or top 5 batting average. Pretty impressive.
So PricePlow, I know when I first got introduced to PricePlow, it was more just price comparisons, and I always loved the blog. Even when I was in college, I always went through the blog. Was it just the shift in viewership in terms of social media, the development of the different channels? What made you guys as a company now say, hey, let's just dive into this? Was it more of like a sink or swim type deal, or was it like we need to just...
I came into the... someone's gonna fact check this. I came in and we had like 1,000 Instagram followers, and I was just like, this isn't gonna be like this can't be this way. And I had a lot to thank with like the previous guys that had built a lot of YouTube stuff through a lot of drama. Like the previous people who had kind of done a lot of the YouTube stuff. You guys might have seen it, like a lot of call outs, a lot of like back and forth. And
you know what's interesting that you say that? I don't want to cut you off, but I 100% agree, and I'll tell you why. We used to debate internally about the value of spending money on places like PricePlow and including PricePlow, because I like Mike a lot. And we dealt with Robert, CJ, several of the guys, and good interactions, but what's the value? And we always looked at social media first. What's their reach? But I remember saying at one point, wow, their YouTube videos actually get traction. Yeah. Whether it's Mike talking about a product or Robert, or like they had more of a traction on YouTube than they did on social, which was interesting to me. So I always felt there was value, but it was weird because everyone else was like the opposite. Everyone was just focused on how many Instagram followers, but no one paid attention to YouTube, and you really need to do both. Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. Because, like for instance, the first time I got the balls to reach out to GNC, because I was swinging pretty hard at one point, just like, who else can I partner up with? It was like, well, you've got less than 5,000 Instagram followers, so we don't care. But I've got 25,000 YouTube subscribers that watch everything and convert, and they actually move off of those. And then, like we were talking about before, the blog is the unsung hero that no one talks about. Like our blog, I'll put it on here. We have over 200,000 unique monthly visitors. Each month, we have 200,000 unique people coming in for price comparisons like you talked about, but also just to learn. So when I came on, we were very, very heavy on the blog. And we were still creating a lot of YouTube. It was just, because brand owners like to see their product on YouTube videos for some reason. I get it because it's depicted visually, but I always, kind of tell people like that blog people discount how much actual blog content is worth. Between keywords and the actual search volume,
you can get a lot of traffic. And that is really where I started to realize YouTube also follows the same kind of pattern, because even if initially a video does not do all that well, over time search volume will.
Yeah, I mean, they're both
accumulate.
Google.
Right.
Yeah.
Google owns YouTube now. So I did a creatine video like 2 months ago, and it was just like, creatine, how does it work? What does it do? Where can you get it? But like, people are searching for creatine constantly. And so we've been ranked for a long time on those kinds of things. So we just show up very easily. And then we had to pair that with actually like engaging, quality, informative content on Instagram. We're now on TikTok, which is like a shit show in itself. But in Instagram, you know, we really do pride ourselves in making like very informative content and try to stay away from any kind of, like we were talking about before, drama. Like, I try to be a place where you learn news, where you get to hear the newest and greatest information, but I stay away from any of the kind of like back and forth type stuff. I used to really get into it, and it was like,
I remember that.
dude, social media like took over my life for a couple of years. It was terrible. And that was like a big realization for me. It's like, this thing was like tethered to my hand at all times. It was terrible.
And it can inhibit you from producing good content when you're worried about the drama or the...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were, you know, and it comes down to a point where you're like, well, the views are there. That stuff definitely works, you know, like when our old associates were like calling out famous fitness influencers like in the supplement space for being fake natties, like definitely gets views, but who's that helping? Right. And so Mike always really grounds me, because Mike's main goal with PricePlow, other than, you know, to have a good business that puts food on our tables and whatever, also the most important thing to him is to make our viewers healthier. Not bigger, not leaner, not more shredded, not bench more, healthier. It's very important to him. And I've kind of learned some of that. For me, I also kind of just speak to the, you know, the gym rats, the weekend warriors, the people who just like to train. I find that most of the veterans that I speak to in the community, they understand, like, because we've all been training for so long, and we know that there's just a lot of people who that's just a therapeutic expression for them, is just getting into the gym and training, and it's healthy. So I don't focus too much on like the health aspect, but I do really try to help out those who are looking to just improve themselves in some way.
Sure. Good quality content.
In regards to like your audience over at PricePlow, how much do you think of it is like end consumers versus industry people, or
That's a great question.
You know, brands or supplement stores? You know, how would you break that down?
I don't know percentage wise, to be honest with you, but I had a lot of imposter syndrome for a long time, where I really didn't think that the stuff that we were doing was getting as far as it was. And it was, I think the moment that told me that I think we're probably doing something right was I actually did get out to Pittsburgh, and I sat down with like the senior leadership at GNC, and I started talking about a couple of videos I did the week before, and they finished my sentence. Like, they watch all of it. Sure. And so I was starting to realize, like, brick and mortar distributors, you know, other brand owners, a lot of people watch our content to see what's happening.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
What's new, who's doing what.
Market research, right? You know, some people, you know, think it's like kind of just like a breeding ground for like, you know, a pissing match for a lot of brand owners, which, you know, we had like the great citrulline war last year, where everyone wanted to find out how much citrulline they could put out in the pre-workout. But, you know, I think
Who won that, Ike?
I think it might have been Darren, actually.
I think it was Darren, with the 10 grams.
Wow.
Yeah.
I came in second.
I mean, and the pricing was going so high too. I mean, it's like, what are we going to do with this stuff? So yeah, and we it's also manufacturers watch it a lot too, because, you know, a lot of these manufacturers have in-house like formulators that want to know kind of what's happening.
Sure, on trend. No, it's not on trend. Why people are using it. If they make it somewhere else, they want to be able to do it. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny too, because like I always caution everyone too. Like, look, I try to cover everything I can. I try to work with as many people as possible, but there's also a lot of brands in this industry that are way bigger than we all realize they are too. And the brands, we were talking about this before,
Totally agree.
that say they're the biggest, you know, are nowhere. So
there's brands nobody in this room's heard of that are doing 50, 100 million.
Oh yeah,
direct to consumer. It's wild.
MLM stuff, like crazy large. So we have this echo chamber of sports nutrition, and I love it. You know, I love our community so much. I really enjoy 99% of the people I'm good friends with. There's a good 1%, but I think we've got a really good thing going right now. I keep feeling like we're in like this like renaissance period where everyone's doing something cool. Everyone seems to be thriving in some way or another right now. It seems like everyone's doing really well.
It's good to see that.
Yeah. 2020 was touch and go for a little bit with some brands, and I was afraid for a lot of like my friends with that kind of stuff. You know,
Especially when the pandemic hit too, because pins were falling, dude.
I mean, I was worried for us. You know, like how many people are going to want to like get YouTube videos made when no one's in a gym? You know, but ironically, 2020 was where we started picking up.
Yeah,
I guess because a lot of people doubled down on like how are we going to get conversion.
Sure.
So it was actually it was a good thing for us because, you know, we could get them in front of more eyeballs during that kind of period.
True.
So in the industry in a whole, I'm curious, since you work with so many brands, not just us or whomever, not even from a category standpoint, do you see a direction that, let's say, pre-workouts are going in, or whether it's intra-workouts or things like that? Or is there anything that stands out to you that all the other brands are doing that you're saying, oh, I think this could be a new direction or a new wave of, let's say, any category?
It's really, I feel like it's segmented in so many different ways. I want to say we're going towards lower stim, more performance. But then you go on TikTok and you see like so many people pushing like such irresponsible formulas.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so then it also comes down to like, okay, well, really, like how big are these runs that are being ran anyway? Like, am I just seeing 100 kids on TikTok outside of, you know, a brand doing thousands and thousands, or is it like just a small pocket, or what is it? I do believe most of the brands are moving towards more responsible pre-workout formulas. I've seen a lot more like biohacking health these days too. Like
Well, there's less manufacturers out there that are you know
Willing to
not
do
playing by the rules, right?
Yeah.
Like that's gotten cleaned up, and that was the biggest thing. Like you get those guys out, they can't make the product unless they're you know buying machines themselves and trying to make it in their house or something. But I think that was probably the first step of getting that whole side of the business cleaned up.
Yeah, I felt like the APH indictment was like a big step there.
Yeah.
That was out here, right? It was Long Island, I think. I felt like that was a big step, like in people realizing, like, okay, there's actually people like legitimately breaking the rules. Like anyone who's been in the game knew that for a long time. There were guys that were, I mean, even there were some good manufacturers that doing weekend runs, you know, that just weren't on the books.
Not a good manufacturer then.
Yeah, well, quote unquote, a good manufacturer that, you know, technically, you know, on the books, they do everything right, but they're doing this stuff on the weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it all day. Like I was doing terribly on TikTok. And so I just started doing this like line of content where I'd go find the most illegal supplement facts panel I possibly could.
That was good.
And I was getting videos going like 150,000 views because I found one that had DMAA, DMHA, and THC. Like,
wow.
Jeez.
Like, I feel like Forrest Whitaker, like with one of my eyes like really open, one of them like what is going on?
That is
what are these people doing?
confusing and not healthy. That's scary.
And you know they're not testing those raw materials, so God knows what really is in there.
You know what's interesting is I even wonder if what they say is in there. Right?
Yes.
It's almost like, you know, that's almost so far over the edge that you wouldn't even want to put it on the label, but who knows it's even on the bottle.
Yeah, then that was one of my funny, really follow-up content pieces. The cool thing about TikTok is you can respond to comments with videos, so I can single people out really easily, which makes things really fun. But there's shining a spotlight on some of these comments is like hilarious, but we have these. I don't really think that 99% of DMHA and DMAA is what you think it is in the States right now, right? Because who are you buying it from? You're buying it from a contract manufacturer that's buying this white powder from China. And I got nothing against Chinese manufacturing. I actually consult for a couple brands over there that make really good ingredients. Nothing against that. But if you're ordering something that you know to be banned or illegal, you're not going to test it. Like, who cares?
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, who are you going to complain to when it doesn't test out?
Yeah, I mean,
that depends. If it's a manufacturer who's not on the up and up anyway, they may still have testing equipment and they can test the ingredient. And
they could.
So I don't think it's impossible. I think it's not plausible, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I think if the guys are willing to buy the raw material, if they're trading dollars, they're willing to test the raw material. They're not reporting that. They don't want to get in trouble for it, but nobody buys something legal or illegal with the intention of buying the wrong thing.
Right. I mean, I know people making completely compliant formulas that aren't testing them at all because it's an added expense.
Yeah.
Right. So why would you add an expense to something that people don't really want to be on the books anyway?
Yeah, which is a bigger problem for the industry. But
yeah. After this, the turkesterone thing coming up the last couple of months, you start to realize how many brands are not testing at all. Like,
yeah, you know what? It's scary that a lot don't. We do. It is expensive. You know, I don't know how some brands do full panel and everything, but I don't think many do. Maybe the big guys. But, you know, that just speaks to where our industry is heading, that people are at least trying to. But it also speaks to how many, you know, garbage products there are out there that don't. And the reality is no one tells the consumer.
Yeah.
And most of the consumers willing to buy that shit don't know any better.
It was...
which is scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary. There was a funny period where I was talking a lot about testing because some brands were publishing it, you know. And
yeah, that became a over the top thing for me.
Yeah, it feels very virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And also, like, who's to say that this one time you tested isn't the last time?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, for that matter. And so it becomes this thing where, like, okay, well, you know, are you going to post all of them forever? Well, then that's...
And then that becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, you know.
And then does everyone have to do that to keep up with someone doing that? These are all questions I don't really have the answer to. Like, it's required by law.
Yeah.
You know, like, so is it even really special to do it in the first place then?
Correct.
In the current scenario, it is kind of special, but it shouldn't be novel to do something that you're supposed to do, or something that I would just consider, like, ethically you should be doing. Because...
Well, it's part of running a supplement business, right?
Right.
You have to have SOPs in place. You have to do testing. There's certain things you have to do to run a business. In different industries have different criterias and regulations, and you have to follow them. Not everyone's always going to follow those.
Yeah. It's not like you're buying something for your bathroom, you know, like that hangs on the wall and you can see it and it clearly is what you wanted to buy. You're buying a powder that may or may not even match the specs of what you expect it to look like.
Sure.
So you guys know you order, you know, a couple thousand units from a manufacturer and it shows up and, like, you open it up, you have really no idea, you know, like, you guys might be really good at taking the product and knowing if it really is close, but anecdotally you could be pretty far off. So
yeah, I mean,
just from a moral
you have to
standpoint,
test it to know.
Yeah, just from a moral standpoint, it's like, hey, we probably should test this just to know that it's good. And to keep your contract manufacturer honest too.
Agreed.
I mean, that's a big thing. So, you know, I think a lot of these levels, like I was saying at the beginning of this conversation, like, I was really thankful that I had kind of come up through it because I had a better appreciation for how wrong things could go. Because you could be ordering, I've seen histidine get manufactured, just straight L-histidine with the wrong scooper. Histidine is a really nice ingredient. It's not all that bad. You put too much of it in something, you can get really uncomfortable really quickly.
Sure.
So it's like little things. People think like, oh, you know, a DMAA, how bad could it be? Or things could go pretty far with these supplements you're ingesting, and they change the chemistry within your body.
Depending on what you're mixing it with, right?
100%.
So you have a lot of people that aren't formulators using a lot of manufacturers that aren't on the up and up. Neither one of them is testing. They're getting raw materials largely from China or India. They're not testing that, so you don't know what you're getting. So, you know, I look at it two ways. In retrospect, having been in retail and distribution now on the brand side too, you see the evolution of the industry. And we talked about this in a previous episode, but it's come a long way.
Yeah.
So I think the industry gets a black eye from brands like that and guys like that. But in reality, the industry's in a better place than it's ever been.
I totally
It's
agree.
more compliant, more tested, more quality. A lot of the riffraff is out. And so I think we're proud to be in the industry for that reason. And I think we all feel like we're part of the cause there and effect. On the flip side, you never get rid of the bad guys in any industry. And so there's always going to be that black eye, and it's almost upon us, and certainly you, right, to inform the consumer as much as you can on what's good, what's not, what to look for. You know, because it's really, listen, the brands want to protect themselves, but we all want to protect the consumer.
Right.
That's really, they're spending the money, so safety first.
Yeah.
And you want to make good stuff, but safe stuff.
So you said before, we were talking about why people don't like me. or why I think some people
I never
might
said
not
that.
like me.
I never said that. I said why Ben didn't like me.
Yeah. No, I had nothing against you guys. But oftentimes for me, I feel that I am disliked in certain circles or because of things, because I hold people accountable. And it's someone has to do it, right? Like, you guys have been around for a while through different changes of guard, but there has never really been someone in the industry who stayed static and held people accountable outside of the FDA.
An uninfluenced watchdog, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of your job, right?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean,
I try to make it my
people
job.
going to you, to get information, see what's new, see what's good, what's bad. So
yeah, I try not to say it out loud sounds sort of egotistical, but I try to make that my job, right? Try to be able to inform people, hey, these are good places to go to. And then the other half of why some people don't like me is that I have found, and you could probably find it from this conversation already, I have found it's a lot easier on my headspace, and it's a lot better of a usage of my time to spend sending people to the right places than to spend all of my time telling you where not to go. If I came to you and I said, for anything, looking for any sort of recommendations, and you spent 99% of the time saying, well, don't go there, that doesn't really help me. I'd rather tell you guys VMI is a great place to get your supplements.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of bad doers out there. And you could definitely spend a lot of your time like, all right, well, those guys have been caught immunospiking. Those guys have been caught using, all sorts of different stuff. And so I get sometimes a bad rap with some people because I don't spend all of my time talking about those bad people. I actually just find it a lot more enjoyable to talk about the good people.
You keep it a positive for sure. I'm sure some of the good brands want you to point out the bad brands. I get that, but it almost generates animosity either way.
Yeah. Seriously.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
100%. Yeah. So I have found...
I'd say shut it down. Don't do it anymore. Shut the whole thing down. That's it.
I've had those days.
Yeah.
I've definitely had those days where it's like, well, what do you guys want from me? Because I love talking about creatine monohydrate all day long, but I can't talk about creatine for the next 7 years. And when we really talk about supplements, because the other thing is like, well, that supplement doesn't really have all that human data on it. Like, it's not really that. If we really want to talk about the things that are like proven to completely work, it's like creatine and caffeine. Sure. I had a really ballsy TikToker the other day, like, make an entire dissertation to me on why beta alanine isn't worth using.
Wow.
And I was like, don't use it then.
Right.
I'm going to keep talking about the meta-analysis is like worth of data on it that all show it helps out, sure. Right? And so that's the other thing that I run into these days too, is like, just as there's no barrier to entry for companies to come out and create whatever they want, the same way with content creators. There's a lot of people trying to do my job that have none of the experience.
And that's the biggest thing I personally see that drives me fucking nuts, is when you have everyone that's got an opinion that thinks they're reporting the news, they're an expert, whatever the case may be. And the reality is knowledge and time are going to help you with the wisdom,
right,
regardless of topic. And you have a lot of people that don't know, think they know, want to have an opinion, and they put their mouth out there for everyone to listen to. And you have people that don't know any better and they listen. And not only are they not getting good feedback, in fact, they might be getting bad feedback.
Yeah.
And so it's not really pro this brand, pro that brand, but like, oh, you should take this ingredient, you shouldn't take this ingredient. Here's how much you should take. None of you idiots read the science. None of you, human science or otherwise. And that is always baffling to me. Nick and I talk about the science a lot. And I'm like, dude, you have to read, and it has to be legitimate. And then it's, well, how do we apply that? And in a way that works, that's safe. You can't just get out there, and everybody does. They shoot from the hip, and oh man, some guy made a product and this guy got behind it because he said it worked, and it was just some asshole who didn't know any better, and then people get hurt or they take shit that doesn't work.
Right.
Either of those is bad, and that's what drives me nuts, because I feel like I never say we make the best anything. I almost try to tell people we don't say that, but we make different stuff. Everybody does. There's 30 different tomato sauces, 30 different steak sauces. No one's in the grocery aisle arguing about those.
Right.
But these idiots are arguing about this. Listen, let's just make sure the company's being run right, putting good shit out in the market that's tested, that works, that tastes good. And we can go from there, and you can have a difference of opinion. But people take it so far, and those people have no place saying anything. And so that, I feel like, is one of those things that we in the industry have to battle, right? Like, have to overcome that. And you, for sure, more so than us.
One of the ways that I've changed the way that I speak in exactly with what you're talking about is I often use the words product offering. Like VMI has a product offering, right? And it's totally your guys' choice to figure out what it is that you're going to offer.
Sure.
Is it a ton of caffeine? Is it no caffeine? Is it all pump, performance? Is it health-based? Whatever. It's an offering. And most guys are not saying this is the best, but this is what we have to offer. And if you don't like it, buy something else. Yeah. You know, like I really don't understand people are like, oh, you know, I freaking hated that pre-workout. Most pre-workouts, I've been saying this for a little bit, you go to like a brick and mortar store, you go down to Ozone Park, you throw a dart with your eyes blindfolded, like you're probably gonna hit something that's like pretty good.
Yeah, halfway decent at least.
Yeah, like
I agree.
The industry, like you said before, like I think we're in the best place we've ever been right now.
Hands down.
You know? And we actually had a really, really great podcast a year ago with Tim Ritzman and Kenton Engel and Joey Savage. And we sat down and talked about like, how would we change things to make it better? And there was like really no good answer. You know, it's a lot of it comes down to like the FDA actually having the manpower to enforce.
Sure.
Because you guys would have no problem if they came through. I think most people would feel like, okay, if they enforced the rules a little bit more strictly.
If you know how many times we've been visited, we just happen to be very local to the New York office. Yeah, like 20 times in a matter of years.
That's funny.
Like a lot. And to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We hate it because no one wants to go. No one wants to sit and take a test. No one wants to, you know. But listen, there's procedures in place and things in place to keep the business running the right way and doing the right thing by the consumer.
How interesting that a brand with a warehouse, not even a manufacturer, is getting visited, and yet I could name 20 brands that I wish would get a visit that you know are coming from manufacturers that don't get.
There's actual manufacturing facilities that haven't been visited that are registered.
Yeah,
and so enforcement policy, a lot of that is probably out of everyone's hands to some degree, right? But again, best place the industry's ever been in. So it's hard to, you know, we could talk semantics. We should do this differently. We should do that differently. Whose opinion on what ingredient? But largely, I think today people are trying to do their own thing, trying to have some level of creativity and trying to improve at least what they make, what their product offering is.
Right.
And hopefully that cumulatively improves the categories and improves the user experience. And you know,
I like the peer pressure of this industry.
Yeah.
I think it's a really powerful thing.
You know, for me too, when it comes to like FDA visits, I don't mind them. You know, to me, it's, you know, we have nothing to hide. We're doing everything in the up and up. So, yeah, come check out our SOPs. Here's our testing. I have no problem with that. But yeah, there are a lot of brands, like you said, that are just aren't being visited, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think it all depends too where you are in the country. Where like who is the field officer there?
Yeah,
you know, some of these people probably focus on, you know, because these FDA agents, they do everything from supplements to seafood, right?
Yeah.
They're all over the place. So they may be in an area of the country where they're focusing on another category so much that they don't even get to the supplement piece.
So there's a field office in New Jersey, not far from me as well, and I've spoken to them there, and I'm like, what do you guys do with your time? Because there's a lot of shit out here, and they were like, each one of these agents has a focus. Especially, I remember we got audited at NutriBio, and one just all they cared about was adverse reactions. Like that was like really.
You're right. Yeah, everybody's got. So it's hard when you first get visited and you go and you ask around, like, hey, you know, what's this? What are you using for this SOP? What are you doing? Everybody has a different hot button. Mm-hmm. Every field agent has a different hot button in regards to what they want to see. You know.
Yeah.
It really is wild.
Yeah, and so
they don't have like a strict guideline where they all follow.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at like their code of federal regulations, a lot of it like says you have to sufficiently make sure this, you know, and like one of them is like make sure you don't have rodents, right? And it doesn't say like every 6 feet you need a rodent trap. You just need to sufficiently make sure that you don't.
The problem is the sufficiency.
Yes.
It depends on the company, the brand, the service. Yeah, we run into that, and I think you're never going to have a straight policy for everybody. But if we just got everybody doing the bare minimum of those, you know, continues to put the industry in a better place.
Yeah. I mean, I think I received a shirt from you guys, I think 2 years ago that made me realize I think we're all of the same thought process when it comes to our country. But
yes,
I almost worked for the podcast today. It's the only VMI shirt that I have that's a double XL.
Okay.
I love that shirt, but
you can't send the guy more than one double XL in 2 years.
We don't have any more. They sold out.
You guys
Shit,
have
I'm
a
wearing
lot
one.
of big customers.
It should not have put this on.
It's nothing personal. Most brands don't have shirts big enough for me. It's very funny.
Same,
But
Yeah, we don't have smalls. I know.
normal consumers like are not what the industry thinks they are.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a funny thing to talk about, like with like products. Like people want to make the most loaded products possible. 99% of consumers like won't appreciate that in terms of the actual usage. Like a lot of consumers are crazy about like, oh my God, it's this like freaking, it's a protein scoop level pre-workout. But most like would really do well with just a couple pump ingredients.
Do you think those loaded formulas that are coming out, again, not a knock on any other brands like that, but
this is no knocking at all.
Yeah,
like I want everyone to know that for sure.
I think it's really cool that some brands kind of throw the kitchen sink at some things. I've done it in some products in my past. But but in terms of how the body absorbs it, how you feel when you take it, are there any stomach issues?
Yeah.
To me, I really think it depends, again, who you're targeting, what you're trying to do when you take the product. I'm not a big fan of throwing the kitchen sink at a product. We just reformulated Train a couple of days ago. I think it's tremendous. But again, I don't know if you see that as a continuous trend that brands are going to be throwing the kitchen sink at things, just only because to me, your body physically cannot absorb, respectfully, 10 grams of citrulline, 2 grams of this, 5 grams of this, 6 grams of this. It just can't. There has to be a purpose and a kind of like a fix, like we said with Protolite. Like we're solving a problem here. But,
so that's a really important thing to say, I think. And, I, by the way, I want to give you guys a compliment on the electrolytes with the Protolite. I think that's a really cool thing.
Thank you.
First off, what you said with a fix, I think that far too many companies are thinking, what can we throw at these people, and not what issues do they have that we need to address for them, right? I think that definitely needs to be said. When it comes to pre-workout, I definitely think that absorption is a factor. I can't personally say anything to that point, though, because, and this is the big point, none of these ingredients are studied together.
Right.
Like, none of them.
Virtually none of them. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Like creatine, caffeine, and
theanine. Yeah. And that one only made more issues with it because now everyone's throwing a load of theanine in every pre-workout.
Which, by the way, everyone went from 0 theanine to too much theanine.
Yeah.
And I wish I could just give a lesson on theanine where it's only a little and no one gets it, but that's another episode.
Yeah. It was the other day I was talking about an energy can that had 100 milligrams caffeine and 100 milligrams of theanine. And I was like,
no. Somebody tell them it's not going to work. Yeah. Stop it now.
So all this stuff is really great in theory, right? And then you put all of it in a can together. And I don't know about the absorption. That's a great question that someone needs to answer with science. The big thing that I constantly bring up is mechanistic overlap. Like you're talking about, like so many people are putting citrulline and nitrosogene together. They both work on serum arginine. They both work through the same direction.
Same pathway.
Literally same exact.
The overlap is a problem. I agree.
Yeah. And so it was funny. I was at Supply Side West in 2019, and they put out the University of Nebraska study where it was like 8 grams of citrulline malate versus 1.5 grams of nitrosogene. And it's like me and like all of the people that I've learned everything in my life from in this industry that I'm meeting for the first time, and everyone's like clapping. And I'm in the back like, why didn't you study them together at the end of the study? Now, like, admittedly, they didn't pay for the study. They didn't even know what was going on. So it's not Nutrition 21. I'm a huge fan of Nutrition 21. I think they do some of the best human data. I should say that because I don't want anyone to think I'm trashing them. But I think it's a really good point that, you get these freaking huge pre-workout bottles now, and they're scooping out all of this stuff, and half of the products in there are all in the same pathway. Now, it's not like you put nitrates and nitrosogene, which would both work in different ways, which would be really cool.
Yeah, correct.
Which you can't do, but I wish we could do. Or all sorts of different things. Like you're doing, like people now do caffeine, theobromine, synephrine, hordenine. Hordenine's illegal, but like this whole list of stimulants. Like, what are we getting after with all of these different things? Right. And so. I find that to be a lot like sometimes my job when I talk about these pre-workouts is to explain like, okay, well, this is the reason why these different things may work together. Caffeine and theobromine, I think, work together very well because they're kind of cousins, right? And
correct.
I think there's actually a study where theobromine added to stimulants had a more profound effect on the feeling of stimulants.
And it did, yes. I don't remember the dosages, but it was
Right.
Caffeine and theobromine.
And so there's
anhydrous and regular theobromine.
Yeah. And so there's like this like actually intelligent way to put this stuff together.
Yes.
Which I have to say, like right now, I do think we're seeing a lot of brands that I can definitely get on board with thinking that way. And then you have really young users and young brand owners that are just like, let's throw everything in there, and you have no clue if it's all working together.
That's exactly right. I think you and Nick are both right, but the bigger picture is really what you ended with, which is no one really knows, right? And so I try to equate things to things people can understand, and from a digestive perspective, it's food. Would you really have chicken, steak, sausage, and 3 different sauces at the exact same time? Mm-hmm. It's too much. It's too much. I don't know how much digestion is a limiting factor for absorption. I don't know. There's overlapping ingredients. Forget the fact that you may be working the same pathway 3 ways. That may be a net negative. Same as if you worked on the adrenal pathway. Overload goes into a negative, and then you're going to shut down. And so people have too much caffeine, then they feel tired, and they don't feel good. And so there's so much of to be different, I'm going to use everything, or more of these, or more of everything. And so it's, well, now I have 12 ingredients, and all 12 are twice the recommended dosage. But why? And so it's almost like people think more is better. More is just more. More can be better, but more is just more. And when we do our stuff, and I try to take pride in it, and I've made a lot of mistakes. Some of our early products were horrible because I let somebody else formulate them. And we've even had recent products like White Heat where we probably put a little too much in there. But holistically, I think we try and look at it as solving a problem, having a niche, something that works well together, could be stacked with 1 or 2 other things. KXR doesn't have creatine, but you could take creatine with it. I'm not even plugging the products. I'm just saying.
No, totally. Yeah.
And I think people, end users, are so apt to listen to the next thing, but they're not really sure. Because consumer education, we've talked about this in the last episode, is so much better than the industry's further ahead. Consumers are more educated. They still don't know.
Yeah.
And so obviously our job as brands in the industry to educate people, but it is frustrating when you see your competitors doing stuff where you're like, hey, you don't even need to do that. Like, not only is that a mistake, it might not be safe. And so we try to stay away from that. We don't claim to know any better on digestion, absorption. The multiple pathways is a no-brainer, but more is just more. Anyone that argues that doesn't have a good selling tactic or can't formulate, period.
I think like the big thing that I kind of like in my head, I can imagine visually is like the purpose of this product is to, we talk about pre-workouts a lot. So I'm just going to talk just strictly pre-workouts for this. You can apply it to a lot of different stuff, but the purpose of this product is to get you here, right? And if that's blood flowing, if it's energy, if it's sweat or whatever it is, in my humble opinion, a lot of these products ranging from, $29.99 to what, $79.99?
Yeah, I was gonna say about $6.79 now, yeah.
That's insane.
Right. They all get me right about here. Very not like few and far between. Does it ever get me any further, no matter how much more expensive it is? So if I'm really only getting here, and as old school guys, you probably can appreciate, like, I can still probably get here with an energy drink and a bunch of carbs and sodium.
Probably. I mean, that's where I started 20 years ago. It was like, you could take Ripped Fuel from Twin Lab and it had a bunch of caffeine and green tea, but like maybe it had an Ultra Fuel that had 20 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
But like it was a short list. Ultimate Orange came out. You had other stuff 20 years ago, but I think as a user, that's really true. Like if someone's like, man, I need this, or I got to take that, or my pre-workout has this. If you really just got to work out, man, you get yourself a little bit of caffeine, a little bit of sugar, you'd be good to go. And listen, I think the negligible difference varies.
Yes.
I think you've trained a long time. You know what you're doing. You're probably very regimented in your diet, your nutrition, your training. Something getting you past that, hard to do. You're already really maxing out your capabilities. You know what you're doing. Average user, maybe there is a bigger negligible difference, right? They don't take pre-workout every day. Their diet's not on point. Their nutrition and training aren't what they should be. So that negligible difference can probably, maybe getting them here. For the regular guy, it's here because he only trains 3 times a week and he doesn't have the tolerance you do.
Sure.
So I think that varies. But yeah, reality is like people, more. Really? Like
how much more? So the point that I was trying to get to is like, how much more does that get you?
Yeah.
Right. And so are you going to spend $40 more so that each workout you get, and it's subjective. I don't have an objective way to measure this. My arm doesn't get a 1/2 inch larger when I use
It happens to me every time.
But as opposed to like I think KXR is a like a healthy level of pre-workout, but if you doubled that serving size, would your workout be twice as good? I don't find personally, like even if I was less regimented, I don't know, and that's also a good point. Is that is it an issue that I'm so regimented and I'm doing the reviewing, or is it a better thing? Because
you can have an unbiased review, but I think realistically, you're maxing out your ability to train and diet, and so I think the average guy who is lagging in all the other areas, this is a bigger.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You put rocket fuel in a Toyota, it's going to go faster.
Yeah.
You put it in a car that already has 600 horsepower, how much faster is it going to go? Maybe a little bit, but
for sure,
you're there already.
In my eyes, it gives me an even playing field at least, right? And so I think that's all like a great point. One thing I want to add in, because if Mike was here, he'd be making this point right now. He makes this on every podcast we have recently. And I don't think we all want to talk this for too long, but inflation is a consideration with all of this right
110%.
He does not think we're going to have even $50 pre-workouts in the next 3 years, probably. He really thinks that most of us are going to be forced, whether it's you guys with your purchasing power or it's the consumer with their purchasing power, there's going to be a demand for more affordable pre-workout, which, again, I don't think a $29.99 pre-workout is bad, right? Like getting down from that astronomical price. Listen, I love huge pre-workouts. I take one at least once or twice a week. I really enjoy them, but I also really enjoy taking like a reasonable scoop as well.
Sure.
Well, if that's the case, GNC is definitely going to be out of business for good this time, because their average pre-workout price has got to be like $89.
In no way in this video are we trying to bash GNC.
Yeah. Actually, it was a decent bit of content for me a couple weeks ago. Was their new Concept X pre-workout, where they brought out
I saw something about this. I didn't read it.
A couple different ingredients that like no one really has been talking about, and like there's some serious shit in there. And so for me, Mike talks about pricing and stuff. I personally say, look, here's the data on what it does for me and what it does in the studies.
Sure.
I don't know what the worth of $1 is for you. You know what I mean? Like, sure. And there is some interesting stuff happening, but the cost of these products are going up.
Yeah, I think discretionary income is a factor because recession is here. Yeah. Inflation is affected everybody's. I mean, everything's more. Everything. Yeah. Like, and it's funny, just to touch on this, we have this conversation, I do specifically with people that are other business owners that in other industries.
Yeah.
Then you talk to people who don't own a business, don't run a business, don't work on a procurement side of a business. Oh, companies are just raising their prices. People are trying to take advantage. Shit, plastic is up, man. Like my minimums are up. Ingredients are up. Creatine's 3 times the cost. Like people don't realize like the buck doesn't just stop somewhere and someone's just hosing you.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And that's really like the scary part about it. But it's up to companies to navigate that. Like you could raise your pricing, but you gotta not outraise what your customers willing to spend on it.
Is protein coming back down for you yet?
To be totally transparent, without using numbers, it's static. It hasn't come down.
Okay.
It's static. Now, part of the reason our net cost on our product really isn't going to fluctuate anytime soon is those Albion electrolytes through the roof right now. And I don't really have a good answer for that other than...
Albion's great quality.
It is the best in IV bags, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's just more IV bags being used because of everything they claim is someone gets sick, but I do think that it affects our net cost. I know that.
Yeah.
And we use a healthy dose. So, protein has been one that I think affected everybody, but it's also the category people are willing to continue to buy.
I totally agree.
Regardless of what the protein is. You could say a consumer's going to switch from dairy to plant to save $5. Maybe not.
It's going to level off, though, his pricing. Definitely, like creatine, I know that's already gone down.
Yeah.
I know it's going to go down again.
That was actually where I was going with the protein comment.
Yeah, I think protein is going to start leveling, just like everything else. Gas went to $5 a gallon, now it's on to $4. So a lot of it is just...
Gas, bro?
What's that?
I said, where are you getting your gas? I don't know where you're buying your gas, bro. My gas.
I found one for $4.20 the other day. I filled up.
My God.
$4.57 for regular.
I saw $4.03 yesterday.
Getting shafted in the Chevy Malibu, dude. My God.
Clearly, you're not a good gas buyer.
I gotta fill up here. You guys have the gas.
Frank got $4.03 and it was a 28% credit card charge.
No, that was with the credit card.
That's funny. No, inflation's a factor, I think. But Frank's right. There are some ingredients coming down. people can say whatever they want. Like gas is coming down. It's down 80 cents. It's still up $2.
Yeah.
So we can, you can say it any way you want.
It is, but from the where you were on the top, now it's to start going down. That's going to, overall, you're going to shipping costs can go down. Then all the items go down. Just like when it went sky high to the top, every item was more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more and more to get there. Obviously, gas and diesel is a huge driver for costs and, in any industry, in any cost of goods or products.
I think the unfortunate outcome is that not a lot is going to come back down for the end consumer, but
slowly, very slowly. Even if costs come down. Yeah, I see that. You're going to have companies that want to recoup losses. I mean, we were in a position where we raised prices on 3 different items, and it didn't capture our total cost of goods increase. So like we ate that.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh man, your price is up. I'm like, yeah, I ate a little bit of that. So it's, there's a balancing act there. I think we try to be real reasonable anyway.
People, I felt in our industry, people actually understood it decently well. At least, I do have to say one of the biases of our community is that like they're pretty tied in.
Yeah.
So like they'll listen, like we, it was funny at the beginning of it. We were asking like any brand owner, like, you want a podcast about this? No one wanted to talk about price increases because it's one of those things where it's like, you have to do it, and talking about it only brings more transparency to all the pricing that's going on. And not everyone wants to put that out there super transparent.
Yep.
And so when we started talking about it, it seemed like everyone was like, okay, yeah, I mean, how much did those 3 prices go up?
You know what? I only remember one of them going up over 20%.
Okay.
I mean, for us, it was a little more than low 20s. It was all carnitine products, to be honest with you. And so for us, we didn't raise that much right away. We ate it for a while. Then we raised, but not the full 20%. So I think a lot of our retailers were understanding, but you have retailers that they're shopping for a deal. They're going to shop around and see who will run within this. And that's their job to do. I get that.
Do you guys talk, I'm sorry, but do you guys talk about your like distribution percentages at all? Like where you are in terms of different places where your products are sold?
You know what? We don't. And I think it's a great question. I give you just the broad diversity, right? So, we are, like every other brand, really trying to focus on D2C, really trying to focus on providing better content, better value on our website. But we are pretty diverse in almost every other retail facet. So we're pretty well represented on Amazon. Frank and I have dealt with Amazon in several capacities for over 10 years, even when we were in distribution. So I feel like that's a good internet platform for us. Yeah. Obviously, we're on eBay and some other places. But from a retail perspective, we're very heavy in the gym channel. And for dry goods and liquids, very heavy in the grocery channel, which is one of those things people don't realize. We're a grocery player next to C4 and Total War in several parts of the country for liquid and powder.
Wow.
So I think for us, knock on wood, we've been very lucky that our retail and distribution background really allowed us to have relationships in the right places. And if you have the right product and the right pricing and you know the game and you can support it and markdowns and margins. So really the gym channel, the grocery channel, big drivers for us. We still have a good book of business in mom and pop brick and mortar, right? And that's really sort of the heartbeat of, I think, the business, because people for years have said that's going to go away, and I just don't think it's ever going to go away. That's just me.
It just feels good to be with those kinds of people, at least when I was involved.
People want to shop at those stores because people still want to network in person. If they didn't, with social media, those stores would just be shut down.
Sure.
And they're not. And so I think it's a good book of business for us, and probably an area we need to focus on more. But I think we have a really good spread of diversity when it comes to retail, which is one of the advantages we have as a brand. I think, we don't have a ton, but that's certainly one.
That's really cool. It's funny, just like stereotypically, I just kind of assumed you guys were like very distribution heavy, like your gyms specifically.
Yep.
And then just like getting into your brick and mortars, because that's just where I like typically I think of KXR, I think of Natural Body.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the grocery store is very cool. That's a very interesting evolution of the industry.
Yeah.
Especially because you guys don't have cheap product. I mean, I'm sure like carnitine is an affordable.
It's one of our more affordable, not commodity, but
yeah, I hate some of these words have like these like negative tones attached to them. And I don't want to ever, the commodity sounds bad, but you try to make products for the communities that you sell them to. The carnitine, is that overseas at all?
You know what? Yes. Australia, Trinidad, Mexico. There's several places out of the country. But
Body by Imran, right?
Yeah. He'll like that shit.
Nick?
Body by Imran.
No.
So, carnitine is one of those I think we sell globally. Frank's got a great customer. We work with Superior Supplements in Australia. They're fantastic. They buy a lot as well. But carnitine I think is in everybody's SKU. We sell a lot on Amazon. We sell a lot.
Yeah. I give Ike shit for that because that's like his everywhere he goes, he makes carnitine first off.
Yeah, he does. In the same bottle. He likes that bottle.
It's easy to ship. It goes overseas. I always give him shit for it, but I respect it.
He knows what he's doing.
I respect it. I'm not a carnitine user because I eat red meat, but a lot of countries overseas can't afford a lot of red meat. It's definitely a very
it's a cultural
product.
thing,
or it's a cultural thing for sure.
Big factor.
Totally. It's funny because I try to convey to some of our consumers, if they see CLA, carnitine, like they see stuff that has been fads in the past. And if you're like a super, super science person that, makes your own pre-workout with creatine and beta-alanine and caffeine, and better than anyone else, and you look at some of these products, you're like, why are they formulating this stuff? I'm like, well, you don't really understand. Like, in some areas, they're not eating the foods that deliver these types of things.
Right.
And for a lot of different people, or maybe you're vegan. CLA is awesome for vegans. Carnitine is especially.
Yeah, agreed.
And I find people are so dogmatic in what they appreciate or respect in this industry, and they don't think outside of the box. Again, like you guys were talking about.
Well, everyone's looking at it through their own lens. It's introspective. They're not. It's their lens, their usage, and it's like
they're projecting.
You're not thinking about all the consumers or ways this would be consumed,
right?
Which is why they're a consumer.
But a lot of brands I find are especially just that they're just making products for themselves.
Yeah, I think people get caught up in that. I think everybody does. I probably have at one point or another.
Sure.
But I think we and Frank and I being very different approaches to health, and he was a college lacrosse player. I did not play college athletics. We have different approaches, but I wanted to be a bodybuilder, right? So but I think because we have different views on ingredients, performance, usage, and Nick has brought a whole nother dynamic to that. I think we do a pretty good job about being balanced. As Nick swigs his drink. Proud of himself.
Bubbly, 35 bubbly.
No, but I think he's brought a different, sort of perspective. But I think we try to be really well balanced in what we make. It's the best word I can use, because I wouldn't say, Protolite's just for powerlifters, or Protolite's just for really anybody can take it. It's whey protein isolate, but we added enzymes and electrolytes. Who couldn't take that?
Yeah,
it's pretty wide to me. And so that's kind of our approach. Is you want to have your niche, and you start in your niche when you have a product, but you also got to make a product and grow out of that niche. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. But some people do.
Do you have a path that we're supposed to be taking with this podcast, by the way? Because we're definitely on one of those tangents that.
Yeah, no.
This is all Ben's fault. Sorry.
No. Yeah, we're just.
I want to get on any topic that you want to talk about. I just want to make sure.
I mean,
I did have a question. Give me the powerlifting background. And I say that because we haven't had a powerlifter on, seriously. And I think that's a group of people that follow us. And I'm always interested in that.
Sure.
Our other business partner, John Hoffman, used to be a powerlifter. I'd love to just hear how you got into that.
So I graduated high school at 165 pounds. I was extremely skinny. I was a lacrosse player. I was a defense player. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just like that. Did you guys just become best friends?
Maybe, yeah. And so I started lifting just because I wanted to look normal. I was just so lanky. And then when I looked normal, I was like, oh, well, I want to look not normal now. And so I just really liked lifting heavy all the time. I considered myself like a physique athlete. I wanted to be a bodybuilder, whatever. But I was training in Carteret at this gym called Skiba's, and these guys, my friends, just signed me up for a powerlifting competition. I had no interest in competing at all because, to me, I didn't want anyone else's validation, right? I just liked lifting. It just was fun for me. And so they signed me up for this, and I liked lifting in the meet, but what did it for me was they had this World's Strongest Man lifting an exhibition. His name was Constantine something. I forget what his name was.
Probably a Greek guy. They're all strong, I heard.
Yeah, he was he was from Georgia, like the country, not the state, where like everyone is like really fucking strong. Yeah, I'm missing on an inside joke, right?
No, I'm Greek.
Nick
was
a Greek guy.
Constantine was going to be Greek.
Potentially from Astoria.
That story got ruined because he's from Georgia.
Sorry, he's from Georgia. So anyway, So they do flights of these meets where, you know, like the lightest up to the heaviest, and then you sort of lightest again up to the heaviest. And so he was the last person in the flight. He deadlifted 935 pounds, like
To warm up, yeah.
crazy.
Wow.
You know, like earth shattering kind of weight.
It's retarded.
People go nuts.
Yep.
Obviously, because it's, you know, inhuman. The next person up is at the beginning of the next flight. He was 15 years old and he was deadlifting 275. And the crowd went wilder for him.
Wow.
And the kid, like, you know, obviously, whatever.
15.
Like, 15, just ecstatic. And I remember like being like, I want to do this forever. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like getting to celebrate other people doing something. Like, bodybuilding is really cool. I love bodybuilding. I love going to the shows. You sit in the stage, in the you know, the crowd, and you watch the stage, and these guys in bikinis, like, you know, posing. It's kind of weird. It's really cool. I love it. I love watching it.
It's a low blow.
No. I mean, dude, I don't have the balls to put one of those on and
It's
get
a
on stage.
pageant. It's a pageant. Sorry, guys.
It is a pageant. It's not a
Sorry,
sport,
guy.
but it's all really cool stuff. And I love doing that. But seeing people accomplish something, like perform something, was very different for me. And so I just immediately had the bug. And so from there on, for the next probably 5 years, I competed at least 1 or 2 times every year.
You were hooked.
I was so hooked. It was like all I could think about. It was disgusting. And in 2019, I had my last meet. It took, and I'm not athletically, like genetically, like I'm not supposed to be able to do this stuff. Like I fought for every pound possible. I squatted 705, I benched 425, and I deadlifted 680. Yeah.
Those are some legit numbers.
I was physically ill for a few days after that. Like it's like one of those things where, like your body like just shuts down.
What's the most you ever deadlifted, Tom?
Honestly, probably 405.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be more than that.
No, maybe 450 or something. It wasn't a lot. Yeah, no, never had a good deadlift. I don't know if it was height, weak hamstrings. I tried. I mean, because I compete. I was a bodybuilder.
Weak in the old hammies.
I just couldn't, wasn't my thing.
It's one of those things where like
I've
you
had
have
a weak
to
low
fight
back
for it.
forever.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like it has to be like everything you do.
Sure.
You know, you have to.
I never squatted a lot either. I was never felt like I was super strong.
You know, I was training at this like family gym that closed down, and I decided to start going to this really hardcore gym. I was driving 45 minutes every single day to this gym. I think probably everyone on the Tri-State has one of these stories once you like commit to your sport, like driving forever to, you know, go to this scary gym that everyone hates you at. And the gym owner like took me under his wing, like not really in a nice way. Like I think we both hated each other at first, but we trained every single week together.
It seems to be a theme for you. No, I'm kidding.
So we started training together every single week. I was a 405 squatter probably at best. And he was a 700-pound squatter. Oh. So 3 years later, in 3 years, I went from 400 to 705. Oh. And it was funny because at the meet, you take 3 attempts of every lift. My second squat was 685, and I was laying on the ground just trying not to dry heave because we were like in this hot YMCA. And it was disgusting. And my coach comes over and was like, "Oh, I put in 700 for you." And I was like, No. He was like, "Well, you don't. 700 is, we're doing 700 today. You're doing 700. And I was like, no, I know. I want 705. And so he's like, all right, sure, cool. And doesn't ask. The whole meet, he comes back afterwards. And he goes, I got to ask, like, why was it 705 instead of 700? My training partner, he was a 700-pound squatter. Like, after 3 years, I had to beat him.
Yeah.
That was all I cared about. I didn't care about anything else.
I love it.
All I needed to show that guy was I could beat him. He's a very good friend of mine now. But yeah, we had a great time in those years. Like, that was all I cared about. Since then, I was 275 at that meet. I dropped down. I'm like 250 now. It's way better for me. It's way better.
Feel healthier.
Yes.
A little easier.
I run now. Like I have a good time being active. I try to, like, you know, at that point, like if the apocalypse hit, like I would have been one of the first ones down. Like powerlifters are great and everything, but like they're not healthy most of the time, you know?
It's often.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. It happens. So I started like, and this was bad because I'm way too like goal oriented on numbers and stuff. Because then I realized I had like weak hamstrings. I was really using my back for everything. So I was like, I'm gonna start doing a lot of RDLs. And then last year I like had this push where like I want to like RDL like the most weight I possibly could. I RDL'd 600 for 7.
Wow.
And it was like,
that just feels
dude, that's tremendous.
It was insane.
That's tremendous.
It was crazy.
No joke.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was It was wild. I remember like I posted that video and you commented
I was
and you were
what
like,
the fuck?
because it's like deadlifting 600 for 7 normal is hard.
Yes.
And I was like bringing it down to like the floor, pausing off the floor, and then starting again. And it was like, when I remember like during the set, I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And then this year, I hired a coach, very good friend of mine, that was just like, I just want you to beat that squat one time before you stop. 2 weeks ago, I squatted 727.
Wow.
And it was so fast. The guy comes over, he's like, you should put 750 on. And I was like, dude, I'm turning 30 next month.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm solid.
It was so stupid because the next week I went in the gym and I was just doing like a normal little squat workout. I had like 400 in the bar and like a couple chains on it. It wasn't comparatively that crazy. Sure. I'm pretty sure I have a bulging disc now. Like, so it was one of those things where I was like, this is the universe saying like, yo, this is the level right here. Stop now.
Limit, stop.
Yeah. He's like, next week you're fucked. Like just chill.
I don't remember the last time I squatted 315, to be honest with you.
Not a big squatter?
No, I actually really enjoy leg day, but I'm not like I don't think I've ever squatted 4. I pulled 525. I have video.
remember that.
Yeah, you big back on
guy.
Nikki.
I mean, do you see
Big
the
back
lats
guy.
on this guy? I mean, it's hard for
Don't
to
do
do
that. Yeah.
But anyway, no, yeah,
I think you can get great workouts in with less weight.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so I'm trying to switch over to like a healthier longevity idea. And I find that I can get good workouts in, not obsessing over the amount of plates. I go to Lifetime right now.
Nice.
Like, feel like a baller.
Wow, bougie.
I go to 24 hour. Yeah.
I know.
Isn't Lifetime like $2,000 a month?
So
I try not to laugh.
They do these corporate sponsorship or not sponsors, partnerships.
Yeah.
And you just have to have an LLC.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
You
have
get
one
like a
across the
really
street from
good
a new
rate.
place.
Wow.
Get a really good rate.
Yeah, there is a Lifetime.
Speaking of
across
gyms,
somewhere.
which you may not know, we're actually breaking news. I mean, we talked about it last episode.
It's not really breaking.
Yeah, whatever. We're moving next
It
door
broke already.
to Bev.
I heard about this.
Yeah.
I heard about this. That is
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah. So like
We're excited. Yeah, it's
I'm elated.
nice industrial park. Obviously, great location. Just famous gym. A lot of traffic. But it'd be good for us to move into a bigger facility that's still local.
Much needed.
How long have you been here?
This is 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a while. And there was like 3 or 4 at the place before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very much needed, but I think it's going to, in terms of even just eyes on the brand. Like we have a pretty decent social presence, but just in terms of the people that'll be walking by the VMI sign, I think it's going to be just a great opportunity as a whole. 100%.
How much do you guys talk about the history of VMI on the podcast? Have you done a good trip through that already?
Yeah, we're on episode 7.
Was
Okay,
it?
right.
Say 6, yeah.
Okay.
6
cool.
or 7.
We did
went through
that.
a
We
whole
did
thing.
that last week.
Yeah.
Because Nick felt strongly we should get into that.
I think it's an important thing. I think that getting your consumers to understand who you are and where you come from is big. Right now, I mean, I feel that people are buying from who they want to support more often than just because there's an ingredient on the label. I think that, my consumer, the core consumers are definitely like super consumers, early adopters that want some special ingredient or something. But I think that your normal people want to see a face and say like, I want to give my money to that guy. At least it feels
I agree.
So let's be that guy, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was an era where it was like I felt weird. I'm like, you guys realize that you're spending, $40 on a pre-workout, $60 on a protein. So what, like $100 to $200 monthly on something, and the only thing that is to show for it is the brand owner in their Lamborghini, like all over Instagram. That doesn't feel very good. And you guys should absolutely, as a for-profit business, buy whatever you want with your money. It's America. But the way that you convey your lifestyle to your consumer, to me, feels important because, like, who wants to feel like, I'm doing all this for my health and my, my performance and gains, whatever, and this is just buying a Porsche. To me, it feels weird, at least as a consumer in that era. I'm trying not to point names at brands, but I'm sure everyone can think of someone.
Yeah, I got it.
It
right
felt disingenuous to me that, like, supposedly this brand is for health and for all this stuff, and it doesn't feel like that in the content.
It comes down to the people, right? So
Sure.
those brand owners, those people that work there or run it, depending on where it is, like, are they relatable? Do you feel good about it? Are they doing the right thing in the community?
Right.
Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We try to.
Yeah.
But I also think we're regular guys.
And I also
That
don't
matters.
I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive. You can be into cars.
Agreed.
Right? But like, is your content you constantly buying cars? Or is it like, because I think of
it does, as much as we may not agree with it, and I personally don't, it does work though. I mean, people do buy into that. Let's call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
So if it was an issue and just, the brands that I think we're all thinking about, they wouldn't be where they are today.
Fair.
So like,
fair.
I think I wouldn't personally do it, but people clearly like it, and it works for some people. We just got a new forklift, and we should like show it off. And
you totally should.
Yeah.
We were thinking about doing some
It's
wheelies.
the next YouTube video, actually. Yeah.
She's propane. She's pretty fast.
She's a bad bitch, that one.
Maybe those are different consumers too. Maybe the type of content that you guys are creating that is relatable, that shows off your personalities and who you are and what you give back, maybe that attracts a different consumer.
And I think that's the consumer we want. I want to help people. We want to service people with good product. I say this all the time on every episode. We want to make good shit for good people that want to work out and live healthier and blah, blah, blah. I love that. Want to make money doing it, but like there's got to be a good message there. And like I got into this selfishly for myself 20 years ago. And we've all taken supplements and we all want to make money, but I want to make good stuff.
Right.
And that matters. And so if you convey that message as a brand, I think you get the right customers because you'll be putting out good shit.
Well, it's this unpopular message to explain that if you were making the same pre-workout, or not the same, if you're making your own pre-workout every single day, you had access to all the ingredients in the world like you do when you create VMI, you might use more than you put in your products because it's a selfish thing, because you're testing and trying all this stuff out. When you create products for a consumer, there is margin involved that you have to consider, right? And you may not get all of the ingredients that you want in there because of constraints, because of supply chain, because of all sorts of different
reasons. A factor.
It's definitely a factor. And I'm sure there are sacrifices that you've made to get more into the product. And there's also probably sacrifices you've made to make it more affordable for the consumer. But that's something that they don't always want to hear.
No.
Which is, it's just a factor. It's a business, and it's a tough thing to kind of reconcile.
And I think we've talked about this just in the office. Like there's people that just don't get that aspect of our business alone. There's people that just don't get it, and I think it's a matter of, it's kind of awkward, at least from someone that's putting out content, to be like, hey, we're raising our price. You can't really convey that. So I think it's just the evolution of the customer, and it's a harsh reality that every business has to accept. I don't know. That's my 2 cents into the conversation.
No. At least in this era, like you kind of brought up, there are other industries adding in their 2 cents. Yeah. And so, our toilet paper ran out, right? Like our toilet paper's gone up in price. So why wouldn't pre-workout be harder to make as well?
100%.
Exactly.
But a lot more complicated.
People have to be under a rock not to realize why our prices aren't going up.
Yeah.
Our prices are going up, I mean, maybe they haven't put a TV on or drove or maybe they've been in the basement for the last 3 years. Who knows?
I also think consumers have a hard time understanding the scale of prices in supplements as well. Yeah. I think it's a very foreign thing to consider that, you're buying kilos, but then you're mixing it into 30 servings and, this thing costs X amount and there's a certain amount of cents per scoop. It's a very foreign concept.
What we do is very intricate, and I think what gets lost on people is if you look at normal consumer products in human consumption, foods, whatever, toilet paper, it doesn't matter. Like a bottle of olives is a bottle of olives,
right,
with a yellow lid and a small label. Like, no, I'm just right.
Yeah.
Okay, they had to farm them. They had to. Okay. This has got 30 things in it.
Yeah.
And it had to be flavored and blended again and backwards blended and filled and sealed. And so it's intricate and it's hard for people to understand that. But I think the message for us is, and really for you, right, talking to customers, it's find the product offerings that are quality, provide value, and that you can trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have to land the plane for the end consumer, because you can't really get any further with it because they're just not going to know.
That's why I always bring up.
I think that's a good message for the episode. Is the providing good quality value.
That product offering and to bring in the other stuff that we talked about is like the message of the company, the quality, possibly testing, should be testing, but in this day and age, possibly testing. All of that is a product offering. Who do you want to support, right? Because VMI offers good products for good people. there are some brands who, specifically speak towards military or skaters or like
their niche.
Right there, there's niches. Who do you want to support and why?
Yeah.
And when it's so often I get like, well, KXR versus C4. Sure. Like, who do you want to support, dude? You know what I mean? Like, who? Think about that as well.
Sure.
Because a lot of these products will get you close to that level we were talking about.
Correct.
Exactly.
And a lot of that difference for me is also just feeling good about who I'm supporting too.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I think everyone can really feel good about supporting VMI. On that point, let's land the plane, as Tom said, because we are definitely running over the time. Today. But we have another guest coming up for episode 9. Didn't mean to do a hard stop there, but we need to because we have 2 more guests coming. But
it rounded out actually really nicely.
Very nicely. But I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much.
2.5 hour drive. We got you home before 6:30.
Oh, sick. Right. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for guys.
You got it.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way I'm